Hello and welcome to HITC Sport. Right, today I'm going to look at how many managers every Premier League club has had since the start of the 92-93 season, back when football officially began, as we all know. We'll go from the least to the most, and we're not going to count caretaker managers. Interim ones are okay, but not caretakers. Otherwise Newcastle will be out in front because of the 1,000,001 times the best manager in the Premier League has been forced to take charge after someone got the sack. 20th Arsenal, 5. It's no surprise that Arsenal finished at the bottom of this list, as the Gunners have spent most of the Premier League era managed by Arsene Wenger. The Frenchman spent nearly 22 years at the Emirates and Highbury, guiding Arsenal to 3 Premier League titles and 7 FA Cups, as well as overseeing the Invincible side that gets a ridiculous amount of slander simply because football Twitter wasn't around to witness it. The current season is the 29th in the Premier League's history, so for Arsenal to only have 5 managers during that time is pretty impressive. Although it's a bit like the American Office really, it was only good when Michael Scott was there. The Unai Emery reign was about as bad as the brief time that Will Ferrell was there, and now you've got Mikel Arteta as Robert California, the weirdly intense bloke who just doesn't like Andy, except in this case Andy was Mesut Ozil and he just shipped him off to Turkey. 19th, Manchester United, 6. Had it not been for the time that Man United went all Andy Tate and give it Giggsy till end of season, they would be level with Arsenal. But as I said in the intro, interim managers count, and that's what Ryan Giggs was after they finally cut their losses and binned off David Moyes, the man who was hand-picked by Sir Alex Ferguson to replace him. Maybe it was all a plot by Fergie, pick someone who's nowhere near your standard but will ultimately flop, as it would only make Fergie look better. Absolute genius. Obviously most of Man United's Premier League days were spent with Sir Alex Ferguson in charge, and since then it's been a lucky dip of people trying to live up to his legacy. No one's managed it yet, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing his best despite his main qualification being scored the winner in the 1999 Champions League final. 18th, Liverpool, 8. Right, I've got a problem here, as I'm not sure if Liverpool's tally should be 8 or 9. I mean, it doesn't matter as 9 would only take them joint with the next team, but there's been 9 separate managerial reigns at Anfield since 1992, but only 8 managers. The issue is they had a weird spell when Roy Evans and the late great Gerard Houllier worked together in the middle of their respective individual reigns. So should that count as another reign and take this up to 9? I don't know, argue about it amongst yourselves in the comments. Actually, you know what, scrap the arguments. The more I think about it, Evans and Houlier's co-spell should count. So let's change this. They're now joined 17th with 9. Also 17th with 9 is Burnley. Wow, another Premier League club with 9 managers since 1992. What a shock. There's less controversy here, but the fact that Burnley have only had 9 managers in 29 years is kind of shocking considering they're quite a small club with all due respect. I mean, I know Sean Dyche has been there for 8 years just smashing pints in the pub and laughing at the steward who looks like Donald Duck, but I didn't know the likes of Jimmy Mullen and Stan Turner were there for ages as well. The only bloke that didn't hang around at Turf Moor was Eddie Howe. 16th, Everton with 11. Everton's low position on this list is mainly down to the 11 years that David Moyes spent at Goodison Park, and it would have been more had it not been for that diabolical plan by Sir Alex Ferguson. But since David Moyes left, Everton have brought in a fair few big and interesting names to try and fill his boots, all with varying degrees of success. Obviously the biggest name is Carlo Ancelotti, although he's followed closely by current Belgian boss and eager lookalike Roberto Martinez, as well as Lionel Messi's current bag boy Ronald Koeman. The less said about Sam Allardyce the better, but we'll probably come to him later. 15th, West Ham with 12. I guess we'll just talk about Big Sam now then. He's one of the 12 men to have managed West Ham since 1992, and will have 5 appearances in this video by the time we're finished, which I think is more than anyone. Christ, Big Sam's such a bottom half whore, and I'm all but certain that he won't make it to the end of the season with West Brom, just so he can protect his fragile little ego and claim he's still never actually been relegated. A penny for Ravel Morrison's thoughts, perhaps. Google it if you don't know why I mention him, let's just move on. 14th, Manchester City with 13. When you look at the list of Manchester City managers, it's like there's some kind of weird Pokemon evolving and getting more and more powerful each and every time, ultimately ending with the final boss Pep Guardiola, the level 100 Pokemon who just can't be stopped. But no matter what, I think the weirdest name on this list will always be Sven-Göran Eriksson, the man who saw his Man City side get beat 8-1 off Middlesbrough. Imagine telling your kids that, with how good City would go on to become, they'd probably think Middlesbrough used to be the best club in the world. Joint 11th, Aston Villa with 14. We've got a big jump to joint 11th as we've got 3 clubs with about 14 different managerial reigns. We'll start with Aston Villa, whose managerial history has been pretty woeful for the years prior to Dean Smith's appointment. In the past they have had good managers, Martin O'Neill, David O'Leary, but in the years when they were in chaos and destined to go down, they had some shocking bosses. I mean, Alex McLeish was asking for disaster with his Birmingham past, while Tim Sherwood has never managed since, thank goodness. Before Dean Smith was Steve Bruce, a man so bad that one fan hurled a cabbage at him mid-game. He went out of his way, bought a cabbage with his own money, smuggled it into the ground, maybe played it off as a half-time snack, and flung it towards the manager of his team. Now that's commitment. More commitment than Aston Villa have shown to some of their managers. Also joined 11th, Wolves 14. Staying in the Midlands, and we've got another club who've had 14 managers since 1992. Yes, it's Wolves, because I just told you, obviously. Wolves are another club with some random appointments, and I'm sure Terry Collins is a good bloke, but promoting him from Mick McCarthy's assistant to be the leader of the whole team would be like Ron Weasley being the star attraction in the next Harry Potter film. No one cares about you, you ginger prick. It's fine, I'm allowed to say it, I'm a fellow redhead. They also had Stella Solbakken, a completely random appointment whose name was pulled out of a hat, and then Walter Zenga, someone I've never seen since and I'm not even sure was actually real. And thirdly, joint 11th is Tottenham with 14. Considering the chaotic nature of Tottenham sometimes, I'm surprised I haven't had more than 14 managers. Considering this is a club that appointed Tim Sherwood and crowned him as a champion of the academy simply because he started playing some kids, I don't think we should trust Daniel Levy's judgment. And yes, I'm going to use a picture of this Daniel Levy every time I mention him for the foreseeable future, just because I'm really enjoying Schitt's Creek right now. Now it's Jose Mourinho in the dugout, a man whose reputation blows hot and cold each passing week depending on how well Spurs do. 1 minute he's finished, the next he's challenging for the title, the next he's finished again, and the next footballers passing him by and he's a dinosaur. The man's had more heel and face turns than the bloody Big Show. 10th, Sheffield United 15. Sheffield United better not appoint someone before I get this video up, because when the Blades decide who they want to replace Chris Wilder with, that man will be their 16th manager since 1992. It's a real shame the way things have gone for Chris Wilder, as backstage politics ultimately caused the downfall of a man who has dragged this football club from the pits of despair and out of the shadows of that Carlos Tevez court case that plagued them for so long. But no matter how well Chris Wilder has done, the real MVP of Sheffield United managers has to be Neil Warnock, because if you haven't seen his documentary from years ago, you need to check it out. After this, of course, please stay. 9th, Newcastle United 16. I'm actually surprised that Newcastle aren't higher on this list, but then again, Mike Ashley doesn't really sack managers, does he? I mean, he gave Alan Pardew an 8-year deal for goodness sake, and even then he didn't get the sack. He left on his own accord and left John Carver to take over and nearly take the club down. Despite Newcastle's chaos, they've actually had managers for a fair amount of time in recent years, some maybe for too long. 8th, Fulham 18. Fulham have had the 8 most managers out of the current Premier League club since 1992, and most of them came from the last 2 times the Cottagers were relegated. Honestly, every week there would be a new man in the dugout, unable to inspire an expensively assembled squad that was simply destined for the drop like a flashy coin on tipping point. Things seem to be a lot more settled now under Scott Parker, who looks to do what so many of his predecessors couldn't and keep Tony Khan's club in the Premier League, because there'll be fireworks if not, and the Khans really know how to go out with a bang. Wrestling reference there for the 99% of you that didn't get it. Join 5th, Brighton 19. While Brighton have only been a Premier League club since 2017, they've actually had 19 different managers since the modern football began, because anything that happened before 1992 just doesn't matter. I mean, they basically had dinosaurs roaming the land as they kicked the slab of concrete around. It was the 2009 appointment of Gus Poyet that really changed things for me at Brighton, as they started playing a pretty brand of football that got them all the way to the top flight and into the hearts of XG hipsters. Joined 5th, West Brom 19. As I said before, this will be around 20 before the end of the season, I'm almost certain of it. West Brom aren't staying up, and Big Sam will jump out the burning building before it crumbles. The Baggies have had 19 different managers since 1992, a big number for a club that chops and changes as if they're your missus trying to decide what they're going to wear when the pub finally opens again. The weirdest appointment will always be Pepe Mel, and I will disagree with anyone who defies me on that. Also joined 5th, Leicester City 19. For a club that is so stable right now, Leicester have had more managers than you'd think in the past 29 years. To be fair, ever since the sack Claudio Ranieri, the hiring policy has been a bit random. William Shakespeare would have been a better call than Craig, while Claude Puel literally has been poo. Dear God, that was a terrible joke. Obviously things are grand now with Brendan Rodgers calling the shots, and Leicester fans will be praying they don't see manager number 20 for a long time. Joined 3rd, Leeds 20. Genuinely, I thought Leeds would have had even more than 20. With their descent down the footballing ladder and the amount of times they've embarrassed themselves in years gone by, you'd think that they'd had closer to 100 managers. I mean, the names they've had at Leeds in years gone by, the majority of them aren't even fit to carry Marcelo's bucket or make him a cup of tea. Just for reference, their previous managers include the Twitter egg, the current Panama boss, a Netflix star, a championship slut, and a very small man. Joined 3rd, Chelsea 20. Of course Chelsea are one of the highest here. They change manager more than some people change underwear. They've even had managers come back for a second spell. Mourinho had 2 spells and so did Gus Hiddink. I mean, that guy's literally on speed dial for Roman Abramovich. It wouldn't surprise me if he's living in the basement under Stamford Bridge just waiting for Thomas Tuchel to get his P45. Second, Southampton, 23. Well, this has shocked me. You know when you think a club are fairly stable and make sensible decisions? Well, that's what I thought about Southampton, but it turns out they've had 23 different managers since 1992. Some of their appointments have been poached like Mauricio Pochettino, while others have been downright ridiculous. I mean, who thought giving this guy a contract was a good idea? You don't even know who he is. I had to Google him. Apparently his name's Mark Water, whoever he is. And number 1, Crystal Palace, 25. If you'd asked me to guess who would be at the top, I never would have picked Palace, but they've had 25 different managers since 1992. Not 25 different managers though, they've had loads coming back for multiple spells as if they're recurring characters in EastEnders. The biggest offender is Steve Coppell, a man who's been in charge of Crystal Palace not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. And even still, he's actually younger than Roy Hodgson, so he'll probably be back for a 5th spell when old Roy gets his free bus pass taken off him. 25 managers in 29 years, that is absolutely appalling. So there you go, that's how many managers each Premier League club has had since 1992. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to HITC Sport. And until next time, we will see you around.